China's been eating the plug-in hybrid lunch for too long. Now Toyota wants to take a bite. This is the 2026 RAV4 plug-in hybrid GR Sport. It comes with 20-inch wheels, 20mm wider track, special dampers, and this really big wing on the back. It's also got upgraded brakes. Taking it all in, it's got a pretty mean planted stance, and the wing looks purposeful, almost like a bit of GR Yaris, I reckon. How much power? 227 kilowatts to all four wheels. There's also a 200 kilowatt front wheel drive version called the XSE, and that starts in the late 50s before on-road costs. This one will set you back closer to 70 before on-road costs are considered. Underneath the floor, there's a 22.7 kilowatt hour battery, which can be charged up to 50 kilowatts with a DC charger. Unfortunately, it does not have an onboard regen mode like a lot of other plug-in hybrids. But the upshot of that is it runs well when the battery is depleted, which is more than can be said for a lot of Chinese plug-in hybrids at the moment. Inside, we've got a decor that can best be described as racy but practical. We've got these nice suede feeling seats with red piping, and also a lot of cubbies, including this one here that you can fit your whole fist in. This 12.3-inch screen has some pretty cool graphics, particularly when you change drive modes. So there's green for tree hugger mode, sport for racing mode, and custom for brown mode. For this new generation model, there's a 12.9-inch touch screen. It looks nice, but there's a few drawbacks. So now you only have temperature control with these two buttons. If you want to adjust finer controls, then you have to go in, which is a little bit of a nuisance, but at least it's still got a volume knob and it looks pretty nice. This nifty steering wheel is kind of inspired by the BZ4X because it's got the square boss, and the paddles have a nice tactile feel to them. I can't stop clicking them. The back seat's where the real action happens. Straight away I noticed it's got a bit of a hump in the floor, which a lot of new arrivals are doing away with fully electrified platforms, so that might be a nuisance to some. But there's two USB-C chargers, ventilation, map pockets and door pockets, and overhead grab handles, so there's not too much to complain about. It's pretty roomy in here. I'm 177 centimeters tall for reference, and there's headroom for days. There's a big divot in the roof here, so if you're over 6 foot, you should have no problem at all here. And the seats even recline a little bit, which is handy, and you've got a center armrest with molded cup holders. Let's see how much boot space this winged beast has. And crucially, whether it's got a spare tyre. The standard figure is 655 litres before folding the seats down, and it's quite a wide aperture, even with this JBL subwoofer in the back here. The all-important question though, yes, this is one of the few plug-in hybrids that has a spare tyre. It might be a space saver, but it's really better than one of those crappy temporary inflation kits that just bugger your tyre and basically leave you stranded. Around town and on country roads like this, there's no penalty that I can feel compared to a normal hybrid in terms of weight or driving dynamics. What I will say is you can really feel that 227 kilowatts when you push the accelerator to the floor. I'll just give a quick demonstration of that. And it even sounds pretty nice. So you're never going to have any drama with overtaking in this. Let's try these paddle shifters out, which are nice and clicky. They have a nice tactile feel to them. But it doesn't feel like a conventional automatic. You do have that CVT feeling at the end of the day. So good in theory, but not great in practice. But it does give you something to do, something to play around with while you're driving if you get bored. Even though I've got a camera on my head, this driver attention monitor is going off quite a bit. So even though I am paying attention to the road, yeah, it's chucking false positives. And I'm turning a corner now and it's basically obscured. So it's kind of like a helicopter with an ejector seat, useless. If you do want to turn off that driver monitoring system, unfortunately, you'll have to do it before you set off because Toyota locks that function out while you're moving, which is not ideal and typical Toyota fashion. over corrugations and bumps, you can feel the firmer suspension of the GR, which also has 20 millimeters of wider track as well. It's a more dynamic, sporty flavored vehicle, but that doesn't really translate into making it uncomfortable. It still manages regular duties fine. Even though we're in the GR Sport with the stiffer suspension, there's no trade-off as far as ride quality goes. We've been over quite a few bumps and corrugations and potholes and things, and it doesn't seem to suffer for it. So it's definitely a good mix of handling and ride. What a lot of people don't realise when they're shopping for plug-in hybrids, and particularly some of these that are meant to be more range extenders, is when they're under engined like that, they have a tendency, they can clap out when you're going up a hill with 4 people on board, or you're asking too much of it, where you know you're never going to have any danger of that in this car, because it's got a 2.5 litre, it's got a strong drivetrain that isn't dependent on the plug-in hybrid aspect of it. So you've got more reassurance in something like this than some of the Chinese cars. Alright, when we get back out in the sticks shortly, we're going to do a 0 to 100 in this. Now, the state of charge in this is quite low because it's been driven by other journalists and there's none left. But that's a good thing, because it gives us an opportunity to see how this behaves when the state of charge is low. So it looks like it's returned a 6.8 second 0 to 100 time, which is outstanding considering the lack of charge in the battery. It also underscores my earlier point about having a larger engine in a plug-in hybrid, because you're not always going to have charge, and that's quite an outstanding result, I think. So hats off to Toyota for that one. So first impressions, it's great that Toyota's finally brought the RAV4 hybrid to Australia to show all these newcomers what their interpretation of a plug-in hybrid is. And as we've seen before, with performance and acceleration, there's definitely some advantages, and it just seems like a fundamentally more wholesome car than some of those Chinese newcomers. However, this top of the range GR Sport variant is about 68,000 before on roads. That's getting up there. Look, it is a high quality vehicle, but it's worth mentioning that a lot of rivals are in the next size up category when you talk for that kind of money. So it might be a bit of too much of an ask for some people, but it'll find a lot of homes, there's no doubt about that. And it's nice to see the GR Sport badge on the RAV4 at the top of the tree.